16mm. I wanted to talk about shooting in 16mm because for me, it always seemed impossible. It's too expensive, it felt like you needed a big crew, special equipment, and it's too expensive. You get the point. But you see, more and more people are shooting 16mm film, as if it were easily accessible. Why is that? Shooting on film isn't cheap, and when you compare it to shooting digitally, it does add up, with purchasing film stock and then later processing and developing it. But depending on your situation, shooting on film isn't as impossible as you may think. There have been a lot of great videos created by YouTubers talking about shooting on 16mm film. One of them, Bray Hunziker, actually shows where to get the film processed for cheaper, and it's actually a great deal. And I'll leave all those links in the description below. There are always ways to get your film for cheap. If you're a student, you can get a discounted rate. Last I checked, it brought a 400-foot roll of film that costs usually around $200 down to $130. So that's a pretty good deal, especially if you're buying it in bulk. If you're not a student, there are other ways like eBay and Craigslist, although I would be a little wary about those sites. You can also look into lowering your cost by lowering your shooting ratio. What is a shooting ratio? A shooting ratio is the ratio between the total duration of footage created for possible use. To make that simpler, if you're shooting a 3-minute music video and want a shooting ratio of 3:1, then you would aim to shoot around 9 minutes worth of film. And a 400-foot roll of film gets you about 11 to 12 minutes. So you can essentially film it all with just one can of film. If you factor in purchasing film at full price, renting a 16mm camera, then later processing and developing it, you're looking about spending $400 to $600 for shooting that film. Now that does seem like a lot, especially that you haven't factored in things like wardrobe, lighting, set design. Now no one said it was going to be cheap, but it is cheaper than you may have thought. The idea is that it's also not impossible to start shooting on film. It's just about getting started. And to start things off, you need the idea. That's essentially your roadmap for the entire film. After you got your story, next up is renting equipment, such as a camera. You're probably asking, where do I find a 16mm camera for rent? Most big cities around the US have rental houses, and in some of those rental houses, they actually rent out 16mm cameras. You can contact them about daily rates or weekly rates and try to see if you can get a discount from them. And if you're looking for an even bigger bargain, I would look into personal renting sites such as ShareGrid or KitSplit. I know in cities like LA or New York, you can actually find listings of 16mm cameras for pretty cheap. If you're looking to use 16mm cameras on a regular basis, I would look into purchasing one. They can range anywhere from $300 to $10,000 on eBay or Craigslist or any of those sites that sell film cameras. Do your research and see what camera best fits your needs. The most common camera that I know of is the Krasnogorsk 3, which goes for about $300 to $600 depending on which model you choose. The camera is built like a tank, but it doesn't record for very long and it's too loud to record audio. Also, syncing sound in post is pretty difficult with this camera as it doesn't have a crystal sync sound built in. That's a device that lets you know that you're running a certain frame rate consistently, to put it simply. But it works great for music videos or experimental films. But that isn't to be said that I've never seen anyone shoot a short film on it with dialogue. They either did it with a wildline or they did it in post with ADR. Now that you have a camera and an idea, next up is film stock. Where do you buy this? You can find it in sites like B&H or Adorama, and you can even find it at local vendors. But the best bet is probably B&H or Adorama. Just make sure to get the right film stock for what you need. I'll go into explaining what the differences are in film stock in a later video. Once you purchase your film, you're ready to start shooting. Remember, film can be more forgiving than digital unless you don't properly expose. So make sure to invest in a light meter or at least a light app to get that proper exposure. You can also bring a digital camera and match the settings with that of your film camera. Once you finish your roll, you're ready to get it processed and developed. There are several places that do this, and like I mentioned earlier, there's a link in the description where the price beats most, if not all, developers out there. Really, the price is unheard of. You did it. You got your film back and you're ready to start editing. Now that wasn't as impossible as you thought, right? Thank you guys again for watching, and I hope all you guys get the chance to shoot on film.